So picture this. You are 23 years old.
Okay.
You've just been handed the absolute golden ticket, a massive promotion, a huge pay raise, the corner office.
The dream scenario.
Exactly. It is the absolute dream role you've been grinding toward. And like, if you grew up in a traditional or, a very risk-averse immigrant family, this isn't just a personal victory.
Oh, yeah. It's the ultimate validation.
Right. It validates everything your parents sacrificed for. You have achieved total, unassailable security.
Which is that defining moment when you're supposed to, like, pop the champagne, sigh in relief, and just settle in for the next 40 years of climbing the corporate ladder.
But imagine taking that golden ticket, looking at it, and walking away.
It's just walking away.
You quit that very same day. No safety net, no backup plan, no competing offer from a rival firm, just, out the door.
Which sounds completely irrational. I mean, self-sabotaging even.
It really does.
But that framing changes when you understand the conversation that happened the night before. Because this is the true story of John Lee, the author of Money Unlocked.
Right.
And the night before he walked away from that dream job, he was terrified. He confessed to his partner that he was deeply afraid of losing everything, of throwing away this hard-won security for a business idea that, honestly, might fail.
And his partner didn't coddle him, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
She didn't tell him to play it safe. She just asked one simple question. She said, what if it does work out?
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
Because that single question completely shattered his worldview. Today, we're going on a deep dive into the comprehensive analysis suite on Lee's book.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out exactly how to stop chasing a paycheck and start building actual freedom. We're going to look at the exact frameworks Lee built to go from a dyslexic kid growing up in a scarcity-minded household to a self-made millionaire by the age of 27.
Yeah, and to understand how he could possibly walk away from what society calls, conventional success, we first have to completely dismantle our conventional understanding of what success actually is.
That's a huge part of it.
Right, because Lee didn't achieve his eventual net worth by just working harder at a corporate job. He had to radically redefine wealth.
Because most of us hear the word wealth and we immediately picture a number.
Yeah, a massive bank balance.
A huge bank balance, a yacht, a closet full of designer clothes.
Yeah.
But Lee throws all of that out the window. His foundational principle is that wealth is freedom, not money.
I love that distinction.
Yeah. The true destination you are aiming for isn't a vault full of cash, it's autonomy. It is having the absolute freedom to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want.
And money is simply the vehicle that drives you to that autonomy.
Exactly.
That distinction really separates being rich from being wealthy.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can absolutely be rich without being wealthy. Being rich is about cash flow. It's having a high income, which is usually paired with high consumption and, honestly, high stress.
Yeah, think of the executive making like $500,000 a year.
But spending $480,000 of it on a massive mortgage, luxury cars, and private schools just to maintain a specific image.
I always think of being rich as running on a golden treadmill.
A golden treadmill. Yeah, that's good.
Like you look absolutely fantastic. The equipment is top of the line.
Yeah.
Everyone in the gym is admiring your stride.
Yeah.
But if you stop running for even a second, you're going to crash hard.
You're completely trapped by the machine.
Totally trapped.
Because that executive's financial life is incredibly fragile. If the active income stops, like if they get sick or downsize, the entire lifestyle collapses immediately.
It's a house of cards.
Exactly. Wealthy, on the other hand, is about high net worth and a very low dependency on active income. It's the person living on, say, $80,000 a year generated entirely by their investments.
Right. They might not look rich.
They might drive a 10-year-old car, but they're infinitely more free because their time belongs entirely to them.
But, here is my pushback on this. Isn't it just human nature to want to hold on to what we earn?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if, like Lee, you grew up without much. Like when you've experienced not having enough, hoarding your money feels like the only logical way to survive. Spending it on assets that might fail feels like a mortal threat.
Well, yeah, because that reaction is deeply ingrained in our psychology. It's what Lee calls the scarcity mindset. And he experienced it firsthand.
Right, growing up in that risk-averse household.
Yeah, he was conditioned to believe that money is a strictly limited resource. And when you believe resources are scarce, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, treats any financial risk as a literal survival threat.
Wow, so it's a biological response.
Completely. You
Yeah.
hoard what you have because your brain is telling you there won't be any more tomorrow.
Which traps you in this vicious cycle,
Hmm.
the scarcity loop. It works like this. Your fear of losing money leads you to take very small, overly safe actions.
Like leaving all your cash in a savings account.
Right, where it's just losing value to inflation. Or, you never ask for the raise at work. And because your actions are so small, you only achieve very small financial results.
Makes sense.
And those small results act as confirmation to your brain. You look at your stagnant bank account and say, see, I knew money was scarce. And the fear just deepens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And breaking that loop requires a deliberate cognitive reframe. You can't just wish the fear away.
You have to actively change how you think.
Yeah, Lee realized he had to stop viewing a lack of funds as a permanent identity. He shifted from saying, I am poor, which is a statement of identity, to saying, my current access to money is limited, and that is a temporary circumstance.
That's a huge shift.
It really is. And crucially, he changed the underlying mechanism of how he processed failure. Because in a scarcity mindset, failure is a catastrophe.
It's proof you shouldn't have tried.
Right. But Lee treats failure simply as neutral data. It's just feedback showing you one specific way not to do something.
I love that framing. It removes all the ego and the terror from making a mistake. It turns a financial setback into, like, a science experiment.
Exactly, just gathering data.
But, mindset alone doesn't pay the mortgage. If you've reframed the fear, what's the actual engine moving the money? Like, how do you handle the cash when it actually comes in?
Well, that brings us to Lee's daily action plan. He uses a very specific structural methodology called the 30-30-30-10 framework.
The 30-30-30-10 framework.
Yeah, it's a system to allocate every single dollar that flows into your life, which really removes the emotion from budgeting.
Let's look at how you can actually apply this breakdown because it's pretty controversial, honestly.
Definitely goes against the grain.
Yeah, so the first bucket is 30% for essential living, rent, groceries, utilities. Then 30% goes to investment and growth. This is the money that buys your future freedom, like stocks, real estate, or self-education. Then you allocate 30% for lifestyle and enjoyment, travel, dining out, hobbies. And the final bucket is 10% for giving an impact, charity, supporting community, or, helping family.
Now, confining your essential living expenses to just 30% is usually the hardest hurdle for people.
I can imagine. Rent alone usually eats up way more than that for most people.
Exactly. It often forces radical lifestyle design choices. You can't just cut back on lattes to hit that number.
You might have to move.
Yeah, geographic arbitrage, moving to a cheaper city, or seriously downsizing your housing. It forces you to actively design your life rather than just letting your expenses inflate to match your income.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. If you look at almost any other financial guru out there right now, especially in the FIRE movement.
Oh, to financial independence, retire early crowd.
Yeah, exactly. They preach extreme deprivation. They say
Yeah.
to eat nothing but rice and beans and save like 80% of your income so you can retire in 10 years.
Right, just absolute misery for a decade.
But Lee mandates a massive 30% strictly for having fun. If you want autonomy faster, why not invest that 40% instead?
Well, because extreme deprivation ignores basic human psychology.
How so?
It is a one-way ticket to what Lee calls the burnout trap. Willpower is a finite resource. If you starve yourself of all enjoyment, you will eventually resent the process.
We'll just crash.
Yeah, you exhaust yourself emotionally, and when you hit burnout, your entire system collapses. You stop earning, you stop investing, and you probably go on a massive revenge spending spree.
Oh, the revenge spending. I've been there.
We all have. So the 30% lifestyle allocation is the essential fuel that makes the wealth-building journey sustainable over decades. You have to fund your life today while you build for tomorrow.
Okay, that makes sense. And, I was looking at the final bucket, the 10% giving rule, and initially I thought it was just feel-good filler.
A lot of people think that.
But looking at behavioral psychology, I realized this is actually a profound psychological hack.
Oh, it really is.
Because if you are stuck in that scarcity loop we talked about, actively giving money away, even when you don't feel like you have a lot of it, it physically proves to your own brain that you live in abundance.
It's brilliant.
It forces your brain to register that you have more than enough to survive, so much so that you can actually afford to help others.
That is the exact mechanism. Giving shifts your brain's baseline perception of resources. It's like exposure therapy for financial fear.
Exposure therapy, I love that.
Yeah, you give money away to prove to your nervous system that it won't kill you. And once you break that underlying fear, you free up massive amounts of cognitive bandwidth to focus on growth.
So we've got the mindset reframed, and we have the allocation system running. But even with the perfect 30-30-30-10 split, you eventually hit a ceiling if your income is tied to a clock.
Exactly.
That's the structural flaw Lee realized he had to fix next. You have to climb the income ladder to actually buy back your time.
Right. And Lee outlines 3 distinct levels of income generation. Understanding the mechanics of transitioning between these levels is really the core of his whole strategy.
Yeah. So level 1 is active income. You are directly trading your time for money. A salary, an hourly wage, freelance billing.
The standard way most of us make a living.
Right. But the glaring mathematical issue here is that it is finite. You only have 24 hours in a day. If you get sick, the money stops.
Which is why you need to move to level 2.
Exactly. Level 2 is passive income. This is money that comes in with minimal ongoing time investment. Rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, digital products.
It's the bridge to freedom.
And level 3 is the ultimate destination, leveraged income. This is true business ownership, where the income scales completely beyond your own personal energy because it relies on systems and other people's time.
But the transition from level 1 to level 3 is where most people fail.
Really? Why is that?
Because they assume level 3 just means starting a business. But if you start a consulting firm and you are the only consultant, you haven't built level 3 leveraged income.
You've just built a level 1 job with more administrative headache.
Exactly. Leveraged income requires building repeatable systems. It means creating standard operating procedures so you can hire someone else to pull the levers of the machine you built.
Which brings up a dangerous temptation. If level 1 is ultimately a trap that limits your freedom, and level 3 is the goal, the instinct is to quit your day job tomorrow and dedicate all your time to building that leveraged business. Just go all in.
Oh, the romanticized burn the boats mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah, Lee strictly warns against that. Quitting immediately introduces catastrophic risk. His entire philosophy is about de-risking decisions. He advocates for the side hustle path.
Okay, so keeping the day job.
Right. Your day job at level 1 isn't a prison. It is your funding mechanism. It provides the steady capital needed to buy the assets that create level 2 passive income.
So you don't jump without a parachute. You build the bridge while standing on solid ground.
That's a great way to put it. And Lee's mathematical rule for this is very clear. You do not quit your level 1 active job until your level 2 passive income consistently covers 70 to 80% of your essential living expenses.
Wow, 70 to 80%.
Yeah. By the time you finally quit, it shouldn't feel like a leap of faith. It should feel like a simple math equation.
It takes so much pressure off the process. But, climbing that ladder takes time. And the sources highlight hidden traps that will absolutely drain your momentum.
Oh, there are always traps.
The first is bad debt. Borrowing money to buy depreciating assets, which compounds against you and just drains your investment bucket.
Car loans, credit card debt.
Exactly. But the second trap is way more subtle, and it's something almost everyone does. Busy work.
Busy work is the illusion of progress.
It really is.
It's a cognitive trap where you feel incredibly productive because you are expending energy, but you aren't actually moving the needle. It's spending 3 hours optimizing a complex color-coded budget spreadsheet to save $5 a month instead of spending those 3 hours making sales calls or researching an investment that could actually increase your net worth in the next 90 days.
It's the financial equivalent of spending an hour meticulously organizing your workout clothes by color instead of putting on a t-shirt and actually going to the gym.
Yes, perfect analogy.
You feel exhausted, your brain releases a little hit of dopamine because you completed a task, but you haven't lifted a single weight.
Busy work is procrastination dressed up in productivity clothing. You have to ruthlessly audit your time and ask yourself, is this action actually generating revenue, or am I just hiding in the details because revenue-generating actions are scary?
So true. So if bad debt and busy work are the brakes, what is the gas pedal? Like, how do we accelerate the climb up the income ladder?
This brings us to a concept Lee really champions: personal branding and visibility. And he learned this the hard way. When he first started teaching his real estate strategies, he organized a keynote speech. He booked the room, prepped the material, showed up, and only 6 people were in the audience.
Oh man, that's rough.
Right. Most people would have packed up, felt humiliated, and never spoken in public again. But Lee delivered the presentation anyway, and he realized something profound about the mechanics of opportunity. Visibility creates leverage.
I really want to dig into how that actually works.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say visibility creates leverage, but what is the actual mechanism? How does speaking to 6 people generate wealth?
Well, it works because in industries like real estate or investment, you don't need millions of followers. You just need the right people to trust you.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly. Out of those 6 people in the room, maybe one is a connector. Maybe one has capital, but no time to find deals. By standing on that stage and demonstrating his expertise, Lee bridged the trust gap.
He proved he knew what he was talking about.
Right. He proved his competence in real time, which lowered the perceived risk for anyone looking to invest with him.
It's like putting up a lighthouse instead of just swimming around in the dark hoping you bump into a ship.
That is a perfect way to look at it. Building a personal brand in this context has nothing to do with vanity or wanting to be internet famous.
It's not about the likes.
No, it is a highly calculated strategy to make yourself the most obvious person to call when an opportunity arises. If you consistently document what you learn and provide value publicly, your reputation begins doing the heavy lifting.
People start coming to you.
Yeah, people start bringing deals, partnerships, and capital directly to you. Your visibility becomes an asset that compounds over time.
So if we zoom out and look at this entire deep dive, the journey John Lee outlines isn't some get-rich-quick scheme.
Not at all.
It is a deliberate, systematic unwinding of everything we've been taught about money. It requires you to redefine wealth as autonomy. You have to actively adopt an abundance mindset, using tools like the 10% giving rule to break the scarcity loop. You implement the 30-30-30-10 split, so you can live today while building the machine for tomorrow. And you patiently, strategically climb the ladder from active income to passive income, and finally to leveraged income, using visibility to accelerate the deal flow.
And honestly, the most encouraging takeaway here is that John Lee did not build his empire because he was born with some special genetic code for finance.
Right, he wasn't prodigy.
No, he achieved freedom because he created a system that fundamentally de-risked his decisions. And that system is completely agnostic. It doesn't care about your background. You can start applying it today without quitting your job.
You just have to start.
Yeah, it just requires one small action to build momentum. Track a single expense. Automate a transfer to an investment account. Post one insight online to start building that lighthouse.
It's about taking the wheel. And there's one final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over long after this audio stops playing. We mentioned at the very beginning that Lee was diagnosed with dyslexia.
Yeah, which made school very tough.
Right. Traditional schooling was incredibly painful for him. The standard, well-worn path of getting straight A's and following the rules was structurally blocked for him. But that very struggle forced him into what psychologists call compensatory creativity.
Meaning because the front door is locked, he had absolutely no choice but to venture into the weeds and figure out how to pick the lock on the back window.
Exactly. He had to build a completely new map.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, as you look at your own life and your own goals, what is that perceived weakness or limitation you've been carrying around? What if that exact barrier, the thing you've always thought was holding you back, is actually the unique constraint you need, the constraint that will finally force you off the crowded standard path and onto your own unique road to freedom?